So in heat of passion, what's often happening in your states is you're going to negate that malice aforethought. But that doesn't mean the jury finds you not guilty. What does it mean?
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about a very messy incident out of the state of Kentucky involving an elected judge, an elected sheriff, and I'm just going to say this is going to be a very speculative episode.
Prepare for us to speculate wildly.
Yeah, but it's a vehicle to talk about sudden passion that comes up, or heat of passion. You hear those terms thrown around. There's no really good, clean examples that we have seen recently to discuss this, so we're going to take this opportunity talk about that with you. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button.
So this is out of a small county in Kentucky. I am a first-generation Texan. Did you know that, Richard?
I did not know that.
You know that I am the first one to not be born in Kentucky. Even my brother was born in Kentucky.
Holy smokes, I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. We are mountain folk. So,
is that why there's all that Mountain Dew under your desk?
So, yes, this is a fascinating case because what we have are two incredibly high-profile individuals. We have the elected district court judge who has been on the bench for 15 years, and we have the elected county sheriff in the judge's chambers, ready to go to lunch together that day. All of a sudden, gunshots.
Scene missing.
Yes, scene missing. Gunshots ring out. Judge is dead. Sheriff is under arrest. What happened? And we are still awaiting, like, the answers are incredibly, non-existent right now, I guess.
Yeah, so, the most likely scenario, and then we'll talk about how this plays into potential heat of passion or sudden passion instructions and how that works with a jury. Well, we have the elected county sheriff getting sued just previously that week in connection with some misbehavior by some deputies who are engaging in let's just call it monkeying around in the judge's chambers with people who are incarcerated. In most states, that's a very serious felony.
That's a very serious felony.
But apparently, these deputies being punished, but based on their sentences, it didn't seem, that severe. So, okay, we'll set that aside for a moment.
There were some depositions which occurred, immediately prior, and, that's a good time for facts to start to come out.
Sure. So, we have, that possibly being connected to this somehow. I did see some unverified stuff on Twitter X about, maybe this judge was involved in some kind of wrongdoing with the sheriff's family. Your guess is as good as ours.
Well, except for my guess, which, although this is wild speculation, I'd put money on it that somebody was fooling around with someone's wife.
Okay. All right.
That's why we're talking about sudden passion, because I can almost guarantee those two guys, their families know each other. They are, he goes to confront him in chambers knowing, if something happens, there's no cover up, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was someone seeing red, and what makes you see red? It's the wives. So, what is heat of passion? What is sudden passion? It's a good time to talk about this because I think people have lots of misconceptions about what it is and what it can do for you.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think there's a myth out there that, plead insanity, gets you out of getting in trouble. Well, people who plead insanity, they go to a prison hospital for the rest of their life. They don't just get walk clean out of the county jail. I pled insanity.
Yeah, and that's even different from sudden passion. That's
right.
No, you do not want to be found not guilty by reason of insanity because you are going to be in the mental hospital the rest of your life.
And I think the same kind of myth is pervasive around heat of passion or sudden passion of, hey, this completely excuses your conduct because, you lost control. You're a human being. Your emotions overwhelmed you, such that, you couldn't act reasonably. That's really what we're talking about here. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you get off scot-clean, and I think that's where a lot of people kind of mess up here.
Right, and you can think of things that are really highly inflammatory, like you walk in, you find your wife in bed with your brother, right? You find out that someone has hurt your child, right? There are things we all go all right.
I'll spend the rest of my life in prison over that.
But we have this idea that they won't really get in trouble for it because it was so understandable. They plead sudden passion, they'll get out of it. They will not get out of it. So what does it actually mean in the legal mechanism? It's a little different here in Texas than it is in most of the country. So I'll tell you, in most of the country, you have something on your books, in your penal codes, that can do a malice murder. So basically, like your first degree murder, and it is premeditated. There's,
Malice aforethought.
malice aforethought. What do they call it? The depraved heart murder,
Yep.
right? So, basically, like, it wasn't self-defense, which is, you just acted unreasonably, so you're going to go away for murder, but, you're not really like malicious. You didn't plan it. You just messed up. It wasn't manslaughter. It wasn't, something really, really awful, right? And then you got the really, really awfuls. So in heat of passion, what's often happening in your states is you're going to negate that malice aforethought. But that doesn't mean the jury finds you not guilty. What does it mean?
Well, it means that, hey, maybe this was and we have degrees of offenses. Maybe this is a less severe degree of an offense. So,
Right. You're still going to be found guilty.
Right. So,
just of a lesser included
if you
offense.
intentionally kill another person, okay, murder, and you had a malice aforethought, maybe that's an elevated murder, first degree murder. This would negate that so that it's a lesser degree murder. Still a murder.
Correct. Still a murder. Maybe it's a manslaughter. Maybe it's a voluntary manslaughter, right? But you're still probably going to prison. In Texas here, it's a little bit different because we have bifurcated trials. So you go through your trial on your guilt or innocence on your case in chief. And then if you are found guilty, you immediately start another trial that same day or the next morning on your punishment.
Right.
We often go to juries for punishment here in Texas because there is this bizarre quirk in our code of criminal procedure, which says there are certain crimes for which the only person who can give you probation is the jury. The judge has to sentence you to prison. So you have defense attorneys all the time on knees begging and pleading for juries to put people on probation rather than send them to prison because it's the only option you have for probation. So you start this whole little mini trial on what's the punishment going to be. You put on witnesses, you do opening statements, you do closing arguments, everything you would have done, or you did do in your trial before that. But that's when sudden passion comes in for us, right? So you've already been convicted of murder. It's just a matter of what?
Yeah, what's the punishment? And so a jury will get to hear evidence of sudden passion. Maybe they heard some of this in guilt and innocence, but they will get to get it all laid out. The way that I explain it to clients are, especially here in Texas where we have bifurcated trials, that first trial, guilt and innocence, that's a black and white photograph. Did this happen? Did this not happen?
Just a snapshot.
And punishment is more of a photo album. Hey, here is this person. Here is all the actors involved. Here's all their background. This is why everybody acted the way they did. And sudden passion comes up in that kind of photo album trial context. And so a jury gets an instruction that says, hey, if you believe that the person's sensibilities were overwhelmed by a sudden, they have different languages, but
yeah,
if their sensibilities and their reasonableness is overcome by some extreme emotional event,
right, such that it would have incited a reasonable person to the same actions.
Correct. Then you will punish this at 1 degree less. It's basically how Texas law works.
So, in Texas, that's, and what I had a jury not find sudden passion one time. So it goes from, if they find it, it's great because it goes from you could go to prison for 99 years because you committed murder to your maximum is 20 years because it's a sudden passion murder.
Yeah.
So,
sidebar: people think that the jury punishment in Texas is absolutely wild.
I have heard that. I did not, haven't, being
this
a
is
Texas
normal
lawyer. Yeah. But yeah, we talk to lawyers across the country and they're like, you go to the what for the who now?
It's like,
you go to the jury for the punishment?
It's like the range of punishment is up to 99 years. How does the jury know what to do?
Don't.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't. It's wild. It's wild.
It is very wild.
So yes, it is a bizarre system. But just FYI, right? For anyone out there, like, well, I think I'm going to plan to murder my spouse and claim heat of passion. I mean,
no, that's not how that works.
Yeah, that's not how this works. And I guess, like, this is not legal advice because you're watching YouTube lawyers, but, like, no, your lawyer says, no, that's not going to work. Get more creative. But it's got to be, for the sheriff to have done this, it's got to be something wild that's going to come out.
It does.
The sheriff didn't just lose his mind.
Yeah, this is, very early in the investigation stage. We're going to be following this case a little bit, but it's one of those things, and I tell my clients, who we're talking about these potential self-defense scenarios, hey, there's probably less than 5 scenarios I'm willing to spend prison for the rest of my life for. I would kind of think about that stuff ahead of time so that if you find yourself in a situation, it's not one of those 5 things, well, all right, the decision's already made for you. But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And leave us a comment below. What do you think happened between these two guys? We'll see whose theories play out. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.
Oh, be careful, YouTube.